Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and in this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the territory to the northwest of Moscow. We're going to talk about the biggest ammo depot on the territory of Russian Federation that was destroyed. In this video we can see the consequences of attack. Currently we don't know for sure what kind of weapon the Ukrainians were using to attack the territory of this ammo depot. Some sources are saying that Ukrainians attacked the territory of this military base with the drones. Some sources are saying that Ukrainians were using unknown type of missile. Anyway, as a result of attack, the biggest ammo depot on the territory of Russian Federation was destroyed. The sources are saying that the Russians were storing and keeping the missiles from Iran and the missiles from Korea, and most likely everything was destroyed, including missiles for Iskander. And of course, as soon as the video was published, the military experts began guessing where exactly and how exactly the Ukrainians were attacking the territory, and some military experts came to conclusion that most likely the Ukrainians were attacking the territory of ammo depot from the territory of the Baltic states. And obviously this may be not the Ukrainians who were attacking, but even NATO. Anyway, let's discuss this article. The drone attack on the Tver region apparently was carried out from the territory of Latvia, where NATO countries are currently conducting massive exercises. And so this is the conclusions that some military experts of Russian Federation came to. Of course, if this information is correct and if Russia are able to confirm this piece of news, obviously this is going to be another step of escalation, and this is going to be something very interesting. Now let's move further. We have additional report from Belarus. The president of Belarus reported that an attack on Belarus is third world war. Furthermore, he added that the US expects a serious escalation of the Ukrainian conflict in September-October. A possible location for this escalation is Belarus, he added. Now let's talk about the line of combat contact, and first we're going to talk about the Pokrovsk direction, where the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to establish complete control over the city by the name of Ukrainsk. And starting this morning of the 18th of September, we got additional reports that the Russians began moving further in the western and in the southern direction. Let's take a look at the video where the Russians took under control the city of Ukrainsk once again. The forces of 114th Brigade raised the flags on the biggest building in the area. And today we got report that pro-Ukrainian sources confirmed this information. At least they colored just the northern part, and as you can see, there are some blocks and streets and buildings on the territory of Ukraine that remains in contested area or in the gray zone. So once again, the Russians, after they took under control the city, continue moving further in the western direction. And according to information we have, there are very heavy clashes right now on the territory of the village by the name of the town by the name of Tsukurne, and on the town by the name of Girnik. Currently we don't know the real status of the clashes that are ongoing here. Most likely during the next during this upcoming day, we're going to receive additional updates and maybe first geolocations and some changes on the ground. Now let's move further. According to different mappers, the Russians managed to improve their positions in Nivoyskaya Cauldron by taking under control additional fields and the fortifications the Ukrainians are withdrawing. Now let's move further. Let's talk a bit about the situation on the land TO524 between Ugledar and Konstantinovka. Yesterday we discussed the videos that were published by the Ukrainian sources of how the Ukrainians were FPV droning the Russian demining equipment that was moving between the village of Pobeda and the village of Konstantinovka. This is the video we're talking about. In this video we can see FPV drone attacks, and two strikes took place. One of them took place here, another one here. Based on this video we have adjusted the map, and a lot of mappers followed our example and also updated their maps in the same area. The Russians continue offensive operation in direction of Ugledar, but today we continue receiving more and more updates that currently there are very heavy clashes for this landfill. For this land, the Russians still haven't managed to secure these two territories. Ukrainians are sending additional reinforcements and reserves. Furthermore, the sources reported that Ukrainians still control the territory. They have partial control over some blocks of the coal mine number 3, and according to information we have, this part is under complete Ukrainian control. These these 3 lines were turned into significantly powerful dense network of the fortifications of the armored forces of Ukraine. These 3 lines and the northwestern part, and the Russians currently haven't found a solution how to force the Ukrainians to fall back. Obviously, the Russians will find a solution. It will take time, and obviously it's just a matter of time, but not a matter of whether the Russians are able to do this or not. And the Russians continue moving their focus further and further in the northwestern direction, and today we continue receiving updates of how the Russians were bombing and attacking the village of Bogoyavlenka. Currently, this is the main logistic hub for the armored forces of Ukraine, where they're conducting through this village. The Ukrainians are conducting rotation, process evacuation, and bring additional supply and support. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Pokrovsk, original Pokrovsk direction. Today we have additional changes on the ground. This is very important progress. As you can see, we have adjusted the map. We have 2 icons from this territory that were published by the Russian and pro-Ukrainian sources. According to information we have, the Russians managed to establish control over more than 90% of the village of Grodovka, and currently the Ukrainians control just the fields and probably some constructions between this village of Grodovka and the village of Novotoretskaya. This report came to us, was published by pro-Ukrainian map service Deep State. As you can see, according to them, the Russians managed to establish significant control, and the most important, the Russians managed to cross the river that goes through the central part of the settlement. So this is the river, and this river was crossed by the Russians during the previous 24 hours, and currently the Russians are trying to expand their footholds on the Ukrainian side of the river. Furthermore, we have geolocation. In this video, we can see how the Ukrainians destroyed the building, and according to the author of this video, this building was captured by the Russians, and the Russians had their temporary position. Most likely as a result of FPV drone strike, the building was completely destroyed. So based on this video, based on the report of Deep State, and based on the video that we discussed yesterday about the Russians that were moving along the western part of the village, we have adjusted the map in Russian favor and colored this significantly big territory. Now let's move further. We have additional updates from Toretsk, New York agglomeration, where the Russians continue their offensive operation. If you remember, just yesterday we were talking about additional progress on the ground in the southern part of the city. According to different mappers, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly. The Russians captured completely the southern residential part with high-rise building area with industrial zones. Furthermore, the Russians managed to answer this high-rise building area, and according to information we have, the Russians managed to break through the Ukrainian defense belt between the prison and the coal mine and the heart of Toretsk, the high-rise building area. So we have changes on the ground according to different mappers. For example, the progress in the central part was confirmed by neutral mappers, and the progress in this area also was confirmed by pro-Russian mappers. As for geolocations, we have a few videos that were published by 100 brigades to the west of the prison. In this video, we can see a number of FPV drone attacks on the Russian positions exactly in this territory. The Ukrainians published the video of how they were moving and maneuvering on the territory of the citadel. In this video, we can see the Ukrainian soldiers that were running on their positions. If you have access to map, you will be able to hear the sound, and according to this video, there are very heavy clashes around this building. So most likely, starting yesterday's evening, the Russians made first attempt to answer the citadel itself and to take under control the first buildings of this Toretsk. If the Russians are able to do this, then we're gonna see the operation to split the city of Toretsk in many pieces, and the first piece is going to be the southern part, and the second piece is going to be the northern part. Now let's move further and let's talk about additional progress of the armored forces of Russian Federation in different directions. As for the territory between in Seversk and Kupiansk, almost nothing happened. The nearest updates are coming from the northern Kupiansk direction. We have the video of how the Ukrainians were counterattacking the Russian positions in this part of Petropavlovka. If you remember, a few days ago we were talking about the video when the Russian soldiers surrender. So based on this video and the video that we got a few days ago, we have adjusted the map to the south of Zinkovka and colored this forest on the complete Russian control. So the Russians, this is another evidence that the Russians answered the city village of Petropavlovka Petropavlovka, which been bombed by the Russians for significantly for the previous few days. Now we understand the exact plans of the Russians. They're going to move along the river. They're going to move to take under control the Petropavlovka from the northwestern direction in the southeastern. Now let's move further. We have additional updates from the Kursk direction, significant number of geolocations and icons. Today we have some changes on the ground. According to different mappers, the Russians improved their positions to the west of the village by the name of Spalne. Furthermore, we have additional videos of how the Russians captured significant number of trophies and abandoned vehicles during Ukrainian retreat from the same direction. Furthermore, we continue receiving updates about very heavy clashes on the road to Glushkova. The Russians are saying that Ukrainians suffered significant losses. During the previous night, the Ukrainians answered the territory of Russian Federation in the vicinity of the village of Krasnooktyabrsky with a significant number of armored vehicles and infantry, but the Russians are saying that Ukrainians answered the artillery back and they were completely destroyed. Tens of vehicles and hundreds of personnel were destroyed as a result of Russian artillery strikes. We have some geolocation that confirms abandoned vehicles and basically the consequences of that attack. For example, of course, in this video we don't see significant number of armored vehicles. We can see just one vehicle that was abandoned by the Ukrainians and that was destroyed as a result of Russian FPV drone attacks. So nothing special, but anyway, the sources report about something big. Furthermore, the Russians destroyed additional Ukrainian vehicles in the vicinity of Medvezhye. In this video we can see how the Ukrainians were counterattacking the Russian force along the tree line. This video confirms that since the beginning of Glushkova offensive operation that began probably 4 or 5 days ago, the Ukrainians still haven't managed to take under control the positions of the armored force of Russian Federation along the border. So the Ukrainians basically stacked. Currently it's very difficult to understand what are the real and exact plans of the Ukrainians in this direction. And that's it for the short video. Military summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel. Put your likes to my Patreon. Have a good day. Bye bye.